Hello, everybody. I want to go over the picture walk assignment for this week and just explain some things that I'll be looking for when you create this lesson plan. The instructions ask that you use the College of Education lesson plan template, which I have pulled up here. It's located under the Student Success Center, so if you don't have a copy of it, you should be able to find it there. This is to be a cross curricular lesson plan that incorporates a picture walk, and it says it's specific to the needs of the students in the class profile. Now, what a cross curricular lesson plan is one that is across several subject areas or various subject areas. For instance, using a picture walk, you'll use a book, which would be literature, and then maybe somewhere in your lesson you're having the students draw a picture of something that would incorporate art, or you may incorporate math. There's a cute little book that I use by Eric Carle. It's called 10 Rubber Ducks, and that incorporates literature, it incorporates math and science. It's a cute little book, and it would depend on what grade level, because this is meant for grade level K through 3. It's definitely a kindergarten or third grade book, or kindergarten or first grade book. So it may be something that you would consider if you wanted to use that book. But the class profile is here, and what you'll be looking at, there's no specific grade level, so you'll choose a grade level, but you'll base how you develop this lesson plan on this would be a typical class. You see a student, Hispanic. It says he is on the spectrum, high functioning, developmentally delayed. He's 1 year below grade level. Here's one with a health impairment. She also has ADHD, difficulty with task completion, 1 year below grade level. Here's one, emotional disturbance. So you can just go down through here, and based on some of these, this is a visual impairment. So definitely when you get to the part where you would differentiate instruction in the lesson plan template, you need to take into consideration all of those things. So moving on, this will include a picture walk, which means you take a book with the students, you go through the book, and you walk through it. You may go over discuss the cover, walk through the book, open a few pages, look at the pictures, ask some questions, and that's a picture walkthrough. So you will do a picture walk, and it also says align your lesson with standards, either Arizona or other state, whichever state you're from, you can use either one. Use an appropriate nonfiction picture book, and you'll incorporate pre-reading strategies, during reading strategies, after reading strategies, differentiation, vocabulary, written and oral language. And remember, some of the pre-reading, a picture walk is a pre-reading, prediction. During, you may ask questions while you're reading the book, and after would be some of the activities that you might use to assess students. That may be just asking oral questions, or have them draw a picture of their favorite character, do a worksheet. But just to briefly go over the lesson plan really quick, you'll put your grade level here, the date, what your subject is, and just choose your main, which is typically literature. You don't want this to be like a math or a science. And I don't mind if you put, if you have a title here, it's not a big deal. Just make sure you put the subject. Then a little summary of your lesson. This is 2 to 3 sentences, and just gives the basic idea of what your lesson plan is going to be about. Then this would be, again, just in 2 or 3 sentences, some of the factors, demographics, that you might have Hispanics, or someone that English is their second language, if they have an IEP, if they're visually impaired, if they're gifted, anything that might affect your lesson plan. I want here identify your standards, and they need to be numbered and written out as you would see them, when you pull up these standards. The objectives. This is a biggie because many students get this confused. But with a learning objective, typically I start a learning objective with the learner will, and I'm going to see if it'll let me type this in, or the student will. And when you put the student will, it's what you want them to know by the end of the lesson. What is your objective? And let's just say that you want them to be able to identify the main character in a book. That's your objective. So you will put the student will identify the main character in the book 10 Rubber Ducks by, and I'll get to that in a minute. But notice here the student will identify. Identify is an action verb, which means when you go to assess this objective, you've used a word identify, which means you can measure that they identify. When you assess them, you may have a worksheet where you ask questions. What was the setting? What was the main character? So they identified it and you were able to assess it. Words like understand, there's no way to assess that. There's no way to measure that specifically. You can describe it, you can identify it, you can recite it, you can demonstrate it, you can illustrate it. Just think about using those action verbs that will allow you to assess. When you put by, you're going to tell me how. By completing, let's say the worksheet with 100% accuracy. So you always want to say how you're going to meet this. How are you going to assess it? How do you know? So let me move on here. And you want this objective to match your standard. The standard is what you want them to know. What are the goals of the lesson? So the standards and objectives always need to match up. And then how you assess it needs to match up. Academic language, you're just going to bullet these vocabulary words that you're going to use in the lesson. Bullet point all your materials. Include some technology in here. Anticipatory set. A lot of people get this confused with anticipatory set is something that you do to hook the students into the lesson. It could be that I might pass around a rubber duck and say, has anybody ever played with a rubber duck in the bathtub? Well, just wait till you hear what happens in this book. So that's just an example of how you would pull them in a lesson. This example they used is they had a visual of planet Earth and they asked students to describe what the Earth looks like. But it's just a little small, simple something to get them pulled in. Under multiple means of representation, you need to include here how you are going to present the material in the lesson. For instance, if you're doing a picture walk through the 10 Rubber Ducks, you're going to do the picture walk, and then you're going to discuss. You're going to do before, during, and after activities, and that's how you'll present it. You may have something a video that you show, but those are all things that you will do to present the material. How would you differentiate this? It may be that if you have an English language learner, they have to follow along in their native language, or if you have hearing impaired, they need to wear headphones or closed caption. If you have the visually impaired, they may need large print. Multiple means of engagement. This is what you want the students to do. How are you going to get them engaged? The example here is they used a matching card activity. For me, I said you might have them draw a picture of their favorite character in the book. And again, you'll need to differentiate and keep in mind that group of students, that class profile. For multiple means of expression, this is how you assess them. What are you going to do to show that they met the objective? You have to take into consideration all your different types of learners. So some may need a different type of assessment. And then finally, the extension activity. I always include a little something extra here. And this is just an activity that goes above and beyond. It may be a homework task or just a fun sheet that they use, but it extends what you're trying to teach them. If I was teaching them about the main character, this would just extend it. So please, take what I've said into consideration, and if you have any questions, just email me, or if it's something that will benefit the whole class, make sure you put it in the instructor forum. Alrighty, thanks for listening.